Okay, so thank you so much for joining us again for another episode of the Valuable and Vibrant Talk podcast. I'm here really excited. Today is Thursday, and I'm so excited about my guest. Just to be honest, this is a woman that I've watched from afar for many, many years. We've come across each other several times in church and in those circles, but I always have watched and just always tried to glean from the messages and the words and the different things that she's put out. But just such a blessing to be able to have you here. I'm so excited. So please just open your hearts and minds for Mrs. LaShanna Leonard Moore, and she is here to share with us. Hi.
Hello. Thank you, Mrs. Carnisha Emmanuel.
Yes, thank you so much for coming. Man, I am just so excited about this conversation, and I was actually at Tom Bass Park doing my walk and listening to your podcast, and I stopped in the middle of my walk. I was like halfway around, and I sent the message right then because I was just so
really. That's when you sent the message to me.
Yes, right then.
Wow.
I mean, I was almost in tears at that particular podcast because it was just like I was struggling through the walk, and I was just like, man, it's just been a journey for me. The last year has been a crazy journey, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But your particular podcast that I was listening to, I think it was called Women Workouts and What We Don't Discuss.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm just like, oh, has she been reading my journal? You were just all over all of the things we're going through. So I was like, I have to get you on. And I have so many family members, friends, just women in my circle that struggle with some of these things just in terms of our bodies. And really appreciate the work that you've been doing from a holistic perspective, and just
thank you.
So excited for you to share. So first, I want to start off with, can you just share with us your journey to becoming a practitioner and kind of what you do, and just share a little bit about what you've been working on?
Absolutely. So I've been in the physical fitness wellness space for about 10 years, and in the holistic endocannabinoid and herbalism space for the last 5.5 years. My journey into the work that I do, that I honestly feel God has called me to, has come through personal experience. I did not know that my path was going this way. I've shared my backstory a few times, in that my first degree was a double major in performing arts, dance and theater. And as you heard on the podcast, while preparing for a tour and getting into fitness to, try to be in better shape, my Achilles tendon was ruptured. So from surgery, rehabbing, and all of that, to make a long story short, I entered into group training and then personal training. From there, nutrition. Moving to LA back in 2016, I had a really bad environmental reaction to the water that led me into wellness. And then a few summers back, being diagnosed with PCOS and fibroids led me into holistic health. And I went back to school each time because I don't feel like we have to have paper for everything we do. But when I'm dealing with women and the sacredness and sensitivity and vulnerability of the body, and the trust that it requires for someone to put their body and their vulnerability in your hands, I was like, I need to do my due diligence. So I would go back to school and get training for each of these areas. And I love what I do. It's a passionate work, but it's a very thorough work. And so here we are. This is what LaShanna Leonard Moore Wellness is all about: catering to the lives of women, holistically, mind, body, soul, and spirit, utilizing the 5 cycles of wellness.
Okay, so that's great. So can you expound a little bit more on what you do as opposed to maybe like prescription medicines? Is that kind of what the difference is?
The largest difference, well, there are several differences. There are 7 principles that we go by under holistic health, which is under the umbrella of functional medicine. functional
Okay.
medicine, naturopathy medicine. You may have heard those terms as
Mm-hmm.
well. So there are 7 principles that we have to adhere to, kind of like an ethics code. And one of those principles in schooling is that you treat the person. You go through different assessments, different testings to determine what the root cause is for that person. So there's definitely testing, blood work, imaging, assessments. All of those things are done within this realm as well. There was a portion of pharmacology even that we were responsible to learn. So you figure out how to bridge these two worlds together. The prescriptions that may be given to these two clients and two individuals that come are non-medical prescriptions. So it's not going to be connected to a pill or some type of pharmaceutical
Okay.
prescription.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's awesome to know. I previously worked at a major cancer institute in the city, and um, my dad went through thyroid cancer a couple of years
Right.
back, and
I remember that.
just thank God for the doctors that were put in place. But there were some things
Yeah.
that we did on the back end holistically in terms of just changing his diet and some other things
Mm-hmm.
that I found that I think have really helped him
Makes a
sustain his
difference.
cancer-free status. So just definitely really appreciate the work that you're doing. And
Thank
even in
you.
my own life and in my own journey with PCOS, just can't begin to unpack the level of importance of just really taking care of my body outside of, because I've had medical intervention and no shade
Mm-hmm.
to medical intervention, but
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
found some of these medications that they had me on did more harm than good, and
Yeah.
just really just a true journey. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing in that space. So what, just off the top, what are some of the most common issues that you deal with and with your patients or your clients that
Mm-hmm.
come to you?
I wow, that's a good question. It is definitely mainstreamed, and it's overwhelming that it's becoming a lot of the common issues are becoming the influx of women that are coming. It's PCOS. 80% of the clientele, I would say, are people of color. That's really my pulse right there. It's open to women in general, but the main driving pulse are women of color, because every part of us, from genetics, chromosome to DNA, to the way that our bodies are made and how the body modulates, is different.
Yeah.
It's different from our counterpart. So it's PCOS, it's fibroids, it's autoimmune disease. Of course, weight management and the concern of being in a healthy weight range is always a generalized area as well. But more women are coming for those 3 reasons. And then, every now and then there's a special diagnosis, or it may be a woman who's in cancer remission and she's
Mm,
trying to adopt a healthier life, because cancer and chemotherapy, radiation is so brutal, and it changes the body significantly. And
yeah,
it does require a very gentle and intentional approach to, okay, how do I live life now on this side of the chapter?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I shared earlier that I was taking my walk and I was just overcome with emotion listening to your episode because I'm just in the middle of like a hormonal um I call it a crisis or an
Yeah.
episode, but I had a baby 11 months ago now, and I have just had the hardest time emotionally. I've had a hard
Yeah.
time physically with my body. Like right now at this moment, I'm at the highest weight that I've ever been, and I've been, consistent with the things that I know. And as you know, PCOS is just, a
Yeah.
different monster. And so I'm even trying
Yeah.
to work on like fine tuning my diet because I know I'm insulin resistant. And so all of these
Mm-hmm.
different things that are just just crazy to deal with in
Yeah.
a woman's body.
It's a lot.
And you were specifically speaking of how our sympathetic and parasympathetic systems are so important. So can you speak to that? Because as soon as I got home, I started Googling and I'm like, wow, because I've had the, digestion issues. I've had the anxiety at night and all of these different things. So can you speak a little bit to, and I want people to go listen to your episodes as well, because you definitely just put a lot of great information, but can you just speak to those particular systems and, why they're so important for women?
Absolutely. And let me thank you too for sending me your feedback on that episode. It has been almost burdensome on my heart to share for such a long time. I come from the space of being the trainer to being the patient to being transformed by knowledge and experience and having to completely revise and rewrite the perception of physical activity for
Yeah.
women.
Yeah.
And I that was an episode I just could not put off any longer. So thank you for the feedback, and I do want more women to go and listen to it. So as you just mentioned, and I shared in that episode about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nerve. So it is a part of the nervous system. There are a lot of branches and connections and synapses when it comes to the nervous system. Each connection in that network has a function that feeds off of one another. Parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. So those are the two aspects that bring us one or two dynamics: fight or flight, panic, anxiety, or calm and relaxation. They never work together. They are
Okay.
always, they're gonna require you to choose one or the other. Are you gonna be parasympathetic today, or are you gonna operate in your sympathetic? And um, if we can allow ourselves to begin to listen to the messaging of the body, we have this go hard, drive, don't stop, don't quit. This is the regimen that it requires in order to achieve A, B, and C. And then with all of the teachings and the marketing and the messaging that you're bombarded with as a woman, it makes it very conflicting to figure out, okay, what do I do? What am I supposed to do?
Yes.
And so the parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for the body's rest and the body's digestion. So digestion, which is an ongoing process that happens from sun up to sundown, and resting, which is a process that happens from sun up to sundown, both of them together. Now, we usually pay more attention to parasympathetic need at night, which is very important, but it's all throughout the day. Are we stopping to listen to our body when you're working out, or when a plan has been drafted for you, or if you're borrowing a friend's plan, or based on what the trainer has suggested? Are we taking the time to listen to what our bodies are saying? If you are already highly inflamed, highly stressed, hormones are not in harmony with each other, you've possibly got some other issues going on, maybe with your thyroid gland, your adrenal gland. There is a diagnosis that, like, such as PCOS, which is endocrine disruptive, that is bombarding what already is existing in the body. Then it's going to be very hard for your parasympathetic nerve to say shh.
Wow.
Because everything is in haywire. On top of the mentality of go hard, keep doing it, grind, hustle.
Yeah.
I've got to, if I don't do it, no one else will. And just all of the other beliefs and pressures that we have. The sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight. It's the go hard. It's the hustle. It's the don't quit. It is that nerve. It's the nervous part of the system that pushes the panic button. And we either stop, listen, look, assess, and check out why the button was pushed, or we just go into the herd of running because we see everybody's running, to this particular direction, just for, figurative example.
Wow.
That's the biggest aspect of really acknowledging that there is a uniquely designed system in our body to, number one, tell us that something is not right. And
Wow.
one of the reasons that I admonished even trainers to listen to that particular episode is because now we've always been there, but especially now that so many people are becoming more conscious and have more goal driven, that
Mm-hmm.
trainers have to re-educate themselves, especially when you're working with women. It's
Yeah.
not always because she's being lazy. It's not always because she's behind the scenes cheating. It's not always because she's not trying. Number one, she's not going to be perfect. And as I
Right.
mentioned in the episode, there is a performance desire. When my mentor was training me,
Whew.
and I was trained under a very great mentor, male mentor from the old school. Even though I wanted to achieve goals, I too wanted to make sure that he was pleased with
Right.
me reaching
Right.
my numbers. And so there's a lot that goes into training an individual, and particularly women. There are a lot of things that you have to know. You may have to stop and ask a series of questions,
Yeah.
have test, assess before they
Mhm.
begin, all of those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great that is just to be able to think about
Mm-hmm.
that particular um system in our body is so important because I was diagnosed with PCOS when I was 22.
Okay.
I started my cycle when I was 9, but it's always been irregular. And
Okay.
so when I was 22, they finally said, this is what's going on. And it's been, no lie, it's been a constant roller coaster from
22,
one
that's a long
side
time.
to the other. Even most recently after I got married, I wanted, because I'm getting up in age, we were trying to, be sure and get pregnant pretty immediately. And
Mm-hmm.
the doctor that I was seeing at the time, she just was like, well, we're just going to send you to infertility,
Mm.
just because of the diagnosis. And so just to say that to say, just the constant roller coaster, even with the practitioner I was seeing, not
Yeah.
paying attention to, what was going on with my body.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting pregnant. I hadn't had a cycle since February. So I was ovulating,
Wow.
but was not having a cycle. So just speaking to the point of like having to listen to your body, because I knew something was going on. We as
Right.
women kind of can know and feel when we're
Right.
ovulating. So I knew something was going on, but just to say I didn't have a cycle and they were ready to send me off to this, extensive fertility
Mm.
program. So, and in your episode, you spoke to, and just now you said to listen to your body.
Yeah.
And even in the episode, your most recent episode, you talked about, um, y'all talked about just being able to do that internal self care.
Mm-hmm.
So having that self awareness. So people who are new to this space of being aware and being um, doing the true self care, not just as she said, like going to the nail shop and still being in inner turmoil about all you have to do. But what are some things that we can listen for?
Mm-hmm.
Listen and pay attention to in our bodies that would tell us that something is awry. Just I know it could be a number of things, but as it relates to women and our PCOS or even any endocrine, anything. What are some things that
Right.
we can listen for in our body that might signal that, hey, I need to do something differently here?
Yeah. It can be really tricky because it can be very subtle messages, very acute situations. It can range very wide. And a lot of times it's those messages that we disregard.
Yeah,
We just like we grew up under we grew up not understanding, but we grew up being taught that PMS was normal or cramping was normal. I remember girls in school who would be
yeah,
cramping so bad that they would have to stay home from
yeah,
school.
yeah,
I never cramped until mid 30s, and that's, knowing what I know now, that was because the fibroids were there.
yeah,
But we're taught this normality that's really not normal. So it really takes daily, repetitive effort.
Yeah.
Let me stop and see what I'm feeling, and let me observe myself, my skin, the health of my skin.
Yes.
If my hair is falling out,
Yeah.
um, if I'm gaining weight that I cannot explain, and you're accumulating it in particular areas like around the abdomen,
Yeah.
especially around the abdomen, which would be a big cause of insulin, around the hips, even right at the peak. I'm trying to get
Mm-hmm.
my hands in the camera, right in the peak part of the hips. There are particular hormonal expressions about that. My anxiety, my lack of sleep. Am I in a hypermanic overdrive mode? Am I extremely lethargic? I cannot find any motivation. I
Yeah.
cannot listen to enough affirmations, enough podcasts, enough sermons, read enough books. I just don't have any oomph, any get up and go. Am I is my memory being challenged? Am I
Mm.
foggy in the brain? Am I antsy? Do I snap a lot? All
Wow.
of these things that we take on as just little emotional checks throughout the day are
Yeah.
things that we really have got to stop and pay attention to. And I want to
Right.
repeat, it's practice. It's not a one-time fix to say, oh, okay, I've got it. I'm going to start paying attention. I'm going to start listening. Because what happens is it has become such a part of us that we feel guilty. The emotion of guilt sets in because we stop and pay attention and reassess and do what's right.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
dare I rest today? How dare I sit down and take a break? How dare I decide to do the clothes later? How dare I decide that today I'm going to take a walk around the track versus go hit weights? How
Yeah.
dare I? And the list goes on and on and on. So this is living a life of wellness is journey. It is as long as
Mm.
we are occupying space on the earth. There is no finish line. There
Yeah.
is no goal, long-term goal in sight when it comes to just being well. It is a
Yeah.
constant rehearsal and practice of listening, thinking, adjusting. And it's not dramatic at all times of life. But
Right.
let's say if you're going through a season of really trying to grab hold to a diagnosis, um, impatience can set in, frustration. There's the psychological and emotional trauma that is linked to having a diagnosis,
Yeah.
that can really bear more heaviness and weight while you're trying to work through
Mm-hmm.
getting better. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's the mental and emotional component of wellness that LLM wellness provides with women. All of the women I walk through where they are with them, because look, this takes time. I think about when the Bible says, do you want to be made whole? That's not instantaneous.
Wow.
People don't finish being made well because it's hard. That's the bottom line.
Right.
It's hard. You are swimming upstream in a culture that
Yeah.
gives you everything else but how to really take many steps. I mean,
Yeah.
snail pace every day. It took me almost a year to regulate my period, contrary to the magic healers that you see online, contrary to the teas you see, contrary to all of the propaganda you see. Natural healing is not overnight. It is
Yeah.
rarely ever overnight. You'll get one thing under control and you've got three other things to attend to. This
Yes.
one may require 3 months. This one may require six. This one may be a 3-year journey. But if you
Mhm.
want to be made well,
Wow.
you commit to the journey. You commit to the life of being made whole.
Woo. That's
Yes.
good. That is so good. I love the fact that, because you don't hear many people giving permission to take time. And
Yeah.
especially not that people, you have to absorb what culture says, but, just
Hmm.
in my particular situation, and that's why I can only consume social media in bits,
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
with all of the, there's I think people are trying. There's more education around, postpartum healing and more education
Yeah.
around really everything. But everything is not, as it says, everything is not expedient. All of these
Right.
messages are saying, okay, at 6 weeks, you should XYZ, and at 7 weeks, you should, and at 10 weeks, and at 3 months, and blah, blah, blah. And so here I am, it was about
Mm.
2 weeks ago, I found myself like, you know what?
Mm.
Everything that I'm reading said that I should have had my last hormone spike around 8 months. But knowing my body and knowing how I feel, that I'm in one right now at 11 months postpartum. And I have
Mm.
to really speak to myself and affirm myself that, it's not, everything is not going to be on the clockwork that, is suggested to clockwork. So,
Very true.
can you speak to just a little bit more on the fact that, especially when your body is in a healing state or recovery state, just the time that it takes physically, but also spiritually and emotionally that it takes to get to a level place.
Absolutely. If we stop to take the time to realize that God made us like an ecosystem,
Okay.
one part of us does not work without the other part of us.
Mm,
Even, for example, if a person lost a limb, well, that the absence of that limb does not detonate the live aspects of what was there because of how we are made.
mm,
So we operate as a complete whole being, an ecosystem. If we
yeah.
can really understand that, grab that, and get that picture number one, we understand how we've got to take all of us
Mm,
along the journey of life, along the journey of healing, along the journey of being well. And so that's a major difference in, and let me say this too, as a disclaimer, we need both worlds. We need the medical and we need the functional world. But
absolutely.
one of the major differences is that a practitioner or a doctor from the functional medicine world is going to take time to cater to all of those aspects, all of those branches of who you are, your mental well being, your emotional well being, your social well being, your psychological well being, your medical history.
Okay.
And we have to commit to doing the same thing every day, taking the time to see even how I'm thinking. There's research and studies now, even with infertility, and we're choosing to say sub fertility now because infertility is a
Mm,
very harsh
yeah.
word that doesn't lend to very many options and
Yes.
alternatives of women getting pregnant. So
Yeah.
subfertility, but there are even researches and case studies now showing that the level of stress and lifestyle disorder that is literally handicapping a woman's possibility.
Wow.
So it's not all medical.
Yeah.
There there are other aspects that rotate and participate in your ecosystem. How I
Mm,
think, how I feel, and we've heard this stuff. How I think, how I feel, what I believe, what I meditate on, what I speak, what is going on silently in me, the mental traffic that's going on, where I am pulling information from. And here's the very tricky thing about where we pull information from. You're not just reading someone else's words, but you are also, because here we are
yeah.
ecosystem. God made us a capsule of energy. When he
Mm,
spoke into the universe, he created, that was science that he was putting in place. So yes, first of all, science and spirituality, they work together. And so are we, just as we
mm,
are. So you're not just reading a person's words, but because you are a matter of mainly water, you are eons and protons and neutrons flowing in your body. You have neurotransmitters. You are a mind. You're a spirit. You're a discerner. You're a perceiver. You're receiving more than just words on a paper. It's very important that we get extremely deliberate about our ourselves, our universe, our bubble, our lives, our system. All
Mm,
of that contributes to a holistic, a whole life. It's not mystical, but there are various realities that
yeah.
determine just how healthy or how sick we are.
Mm,
Um, Even memory disorders, dementia,
yeah.
amnesia, Alzheimer's, all of those can be tracked to other life defining moments in life, traumas,
Oh, wow.
and listen, it's been documented, it's
Yeah.
been demonstrated. So we have to approach life, living, and healing from that perspective. And you have to aggressively protect yourself.
Hmm.
You're not being confrontational. You're not being standoffish. You're not trying to be a renegade, but
Yeah.
you are determined to protect your well-being at all costs, because many people don't really understand how to teach you. We've got gurus and experts now more than ever.
Good Lord.
Nobody knows you like you, and nobody knows you like the person that created you. And then nobody is going to know you like the medical team that you've assembled.
Yeah.
Got to have
Yeah.
intention with that, with the medical team that you assemble for yourself. Have your medical physicians, have your alternative physicians, have your spiritual advising, have your sister circle, and all of
Yeah.
those things, which are urgently important. And I want to say real quick too, as you were talking about PCOS, PCOS is a very complicated diagnosis,
Woo.
and it takes a series of tests and lengthy questions that your physician has to take you through, and it may be more than one appointment, it may be
Yes.
more than one physician. And then thereafter, a woman needs to know what type of PCOS she
That.
has
That.
in order to chart out um, a journey that's appropriate for her.
Absolutely. Wow. That's good. It's a lot to unpack, but it's worth the work. It's definitely worth the work. Um,
Mhm. Yeah, it is.
what what would be, just off the top of your head, and maybe could be even very practical, what are three things that you feel like women could just, even if it's just drink more water or
Mm.
just get outside, get some vitamin D? What are three things that you could just say off the top of your head from uh, your experience? Like, what do women, and namely Black women, what do we need to do more to just take care of ourselves?
I'll list them first. I'll say water, sleep, and get off sugar. There are a
Mm,
lot, but those are the three that will really wreak havoc. We underestimate the power of water, and we don't realize the crisis of dehydration.
really? Okay.
Yes, we underestimate the crisis of dehydration. Water alone will eliminate over 280 biochemical reactions in the body.
Wow.
Water, being hydrated, making sure that you are replenishing, because you're excreting water out of your pores and out of your organs in so many ways throughout the course of the day, throughout the night, that our bodies are requiring us to constantly refill it. And I've used this
Wow.
analogy before, and you may have heard it as well, that by the time you feel thirsty, you are already at a deficit. You're already extremely dehydrated. Some people who brag about not sweating when they work out, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Your body should, be releasing water out of your pores. Now, everyone sweats at a different volume, but there are many, many reasons why your brain needs water, your liver, your kidneys, your small and large digestion tract, and the way that the digestion tract is even created and built
Yeah.
as opposed to an animal's digestion tract. We need to have water constantly. Um, the second one I said was the second one. Rest. Rest is important. Rest and sleep are two different things, but our hormones, our thyroid, our adrenal glands, and our cortisol levels depend heavily on resting and sleeping.
Wow.
Restoring, repairing, and regenerating. So we
Mm.
have to think about, we are a huge organism of cells.
Yeah.
We're not just depending on them, but they are depending on us. So one
Yeah.
thing that I've started to do for myself, some people know, that I'm walking through, grief
Yeah.
journey. Life is just highly inflamed right
Yes.
now, and sleep has
Oh.
definitely been a challenge like none other.
Yeah.
Um, and what grief did for me was that it kicked my insulin resistance back in to activity. It reactivated it. I had
Wow.
worked very hard, because my PCOS type was insulin resistance. I worked very hard for months to get that insulin resistance under control so that my body could regulate insulin properly.
Yeah.
But life, this is why wellness is life, because life is going to happen.
Yeah.
If you look at it like that and remove goals and remove dogma and the aggression, you give yourself grace. Grace is already there waiting for you to embrace it in the new chapter, because I realize that as long as I'm alive, wholeness and wellness is going to be my focus.
Yeah.
So talking about sleep, I've started to talk myself through, the nighttime is my time to heal. The
Mm.
nighttime is my time to heal. This is my time for my body to breathe, where I've not given it an opportunity to, where stress, fear, and anxiety have taken captive of my hormones, my thyroid, and I just walk down every aspect of my body, my endocannabinoid system.
Yes.
Now it's their opportunity to breathe, take a break, recharge, restore, and rebuild. And when I
Yeah.
wake up, I'm declaring that I'm going to awaken into the charge of what happened overnight. And that's
Mm.
practice. It's practice. Sleep is crucially important.
Yeah.
And we've got to aggressively make it a part of life and then plan for sleep. It's rarely ever instant, rarely ever instant. So we're preparing for rest 4 to 5 hours before we actually lay our head down. And then
Mm.
thirdly, sugar. Sugar is wreaking havoc. Sugar
Oh.
is a crisis within itself, because it's not just about having a visual addiction. Sugar is a chemical disruptor in the body. It goes into the neurological aspects of our being. It becomes a monster.
Wow.
So people can have the same type of relapse and the same type of withdrawal from sugar as they would any other addiction, because
Yes.
it has married itself to the neurological aspect, to the
Yes.
chemical dependency that the body starts to receive. It begins to lessen the natural dopamines and enzymes that the body creates.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wants what it wants, and it
Wow.
begins to damage liver and your kidneys,
Wow.
um, your skin, and of course the list goes on and on. But those are the three things that I would really encourage women, especially Black women, to get control over immediately.
Yeah, that sugar has been something I've been working on,
Yeah.
especially specifically for the last couple of months, because,
Hmm.
and just to speak to the power of it, I had I had an episode, um, maybe about a month ago, where I ate a oatmeal pie with something I don't normally eat. For sweets, I've been trying to do like the fruit popsicles, like natural popsicles. But I ate an oatmeal pie, and when I tell you, I had the worst
Wow.
reaction, or I had I guess it was the spike and then the crash, but it was overnight. And I just was like, I could feel my body racing from the sugar. I could feel my anxiety. I could feel the palpitations. Like all of that happened because of this. And I know exactly what it was because I've never felt that way. And I've kind of tried to track, this type of sugar reaction is your body, especially since I'm insulin resistant and I know that my body doesn't know what to do with sugar. So I'm just speaking to the importance of like, and so that's what I've been trying to do, like be very intentional about what I put in my body. But those three are um really like
Is a
my
beast.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
particularly for Black women, thinking about, of course, all the different diseases that are very common and we know of, but how it increases the amount of visceral fat. And the visceral fat is the
Okay.
fat that you don't see. It's not the fat that you can grab and measure and that spills over clothes. It's the internal fat that really links itself to the diseases
Yes.
that are waiting or that are already
Mm-hmm.
existing in the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's definitely because I've done some research on that visceral fat, and
Hmm.
that's just what I'm constantly praying over because
Yeah,
while I'm in this, crisis, just trying to do what I can, but more importantly, just take it day by day. But being
truly.
intentional about everything that I put in my mouth, everything that I say to myself, my meditations, my thoughts, my even my activity level, because um, my husband is a athletic trainer, and so in my mind, it was never on him, but it was my mind like, okay, 6 weeks, I'm ready to hit it. And then it was like, okay, maybe 12 weeks. And then it was like, oh, maybe, 4 months.
Yeah,
So much time had passed. And I know I can tell, but based on the way that I feel, that I'm just struggling with a lot of inflammation. And really, all I can do is walk.
right.
And where I started, just being able to walk around the block, and then I could do a mile. And now I'm up to 2 miles at one session. But I did a more high
That's
energy workout on Saturday, and I
mm-hmm.
felt pretty good. And so where I landed was maybe I can do that once a week.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I was ready like 3 to 5 days a week, I'm ready to hit it, but I'm just not able to do it at this time. And so I really
That's good
appreciate the
that you
encouragement
recognize
to
that.
listen, yeah, to listen and to give yourself permission to just take the time and do it as you can. So, man, you've given
The
so much
body,
valuable information.
the body changes and modulates so much after life experiences, having a baby, going through depression,
Yeah.
recovering from an accident, amputation, hormone drop, menopause, diagnosis. The body modulates so very often. Women who have had multiple children will say all of the time the second one wasn't like the first, or the
Yeah.
fourth one was extremely different, or they had no problem the first time around and the second time around there's a fertility challenge, or the body is not ovulating the way that it once was, and then postpartum is a completely different
Oh,
journey. It's the body doesn't snap back, so to speak, because every aspect of you has taken on a major shift. And
yeah.
the baby, while you were carrying for 8 to 9 months, has taken so much from you
Yes.
based
Yes.
on delivery, if it was natural or if you had to be cut into, your nerves and your muscles, muscle fibers, and the connections of which those work together have all taken a major blow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we have this expectation of what? To do what?
What?
So it looks like what after 6 months, 11 months? Are you kidding me? So it's very natural. Let me normalize. We love this word now. Let me use it.
Let's normalize.
To normalize 6 months, 11 months. That is not the norm. That is not the average of the everyday woman. No. The entire system changes. The entire system changes. And our body goes through 4 cycles out of the month, not just your menstrual. That's one of 4. So, and I'm getting ready to do an episode on this. I'd love for you to hear it. We have to be aware of what cycle of the month we're in, which also can, which is going to change progesterone, estradiol, estrone, and estrogen. Those are the 4 major hormones, and prolactin even. We have to know where we are in our phase to even design, okay, I'm in my luteal phase. This is restorative exercise. I'm in ovulation phase. I'm in my follicular phase. This is where I'm going to do resistance training. The more you listen and then the more you learn, you apply those things to the body. And for some ladies who may be listening or watching, stop throwing everything to the fact that you're lazy or you can't do it, or beating your body down. Wow, why aren't you bouncing back? Why am I not dropping this weight and this and that? First of all, professional assessments and tests are crucial. Blood work, all of that is very, very important when you are in a new season of life. Let me know what's going on with myself first so that I can handle her accordingly. Yes. And then there are just going to be times throughout a 30, 31 day month that you're going to have to change up the kind of workouts you do based on where your hormone levels are, provided that they are, operating in a normal range. Wow. Everything is going to shift. A woman's libido is going to shift. Her workouts are going to shift. Her sleep pattern is going to shift. The cycle where she's bloating versus, feeling a lot more like herself. All of those things are going to shift. We have to give ourselves grace. And it's not excuse. That's life and reality. People that don't preach that or understand that philosophy have been trained under a certain system that is not realistic for life or womanhood.
Wow.
And it has to be revisited. I don't care whether you have 100 followers or 100,000 followers. If your philosophy that you're teaching women is not a part of their makeup for life, life does change. 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Yeah, it changes. But if our philosophies don't give space and grace for those modulations, then we are setting ourselves up for a lot of depression and a lot of failure.
Wow. So cool. I'm just so appreciative for your knowledge in that, but also just sometimes you just need a hand of compassion to bring some compassion to your situation. So I really appreciate you just bringing some light that this isn't just, something that I need because I'm sensitive, or something that I need because I'm, tender-hearted, but this is, substantiated by facts and data and all of these different things. And I just really appreciate that. Now, I mentioned earlier in the episode, and when I woke up this morning, I just felt led to ask you this. When I said earlier in the episode that, I've been watching you from afar, for many, many years, and just want to give you this opportunity at this time. If there's anything else that you need to say, you've always been a beast in the spirit. If there's anything you need to say, anything that you're feeling, anything that you want to just speak life right now, I want to give you that opportunity before we wrap up. But just so much, so appreciative, so glad, and definitely so full off of what you've already given. And I just want to open the floor and give you this time, just if there's anything on your heart to say.
Wow. Thank you, Carnisha. I just want to encourage and implore women who are listening and watching to understand uh, the importance of discernment. Uh, Discernment is a gift that you can apply to every aspect of your life, because knowing discernment, even if we're thinking about wellness, can be applied. Let's say, for example, in physical wellness, discernment can let you know that this is something is happening that's not my usual, that is not normal. Something is going on. I don't have the degree to determine it. I don't have the language to know what it is. I don't wear a white coat, but something is not right. Social wellness, where you surround yourself and people that you surround yourself with. Discernment is important, whether it's virtual or whether it's in person. Discernment is important because it can help you to understand, or not understand, but it can help you to target that something is not quite right. Stop disregarding things, whether it's relationship, friendship, what you see, what you watch. There's so many times I'm on social media and discernment, I'll scroll, and discernment will help you see beyond what you see or see beyond what you read. And you find yourself having compassion for somebody. You find yourself, not getting caught up with what they're showcasing. And not saying everybody's like that, but we know that's a large part of social media. Discernment will cause you to have compassion. It will cause you to give grace. It will cause you to pray for someone. It'll cause you to check on someone, whether you know them or not. DM them and hope that they see your message. Discernment in the medical space, discernment in your home life, discernment with a new year of life. Discernment is so crucial. It's one of the greatest things and gifts my mother could have ever given me, starting in junior high school, when I would dream and did not know what those dreams were about, or when she would teach me about people, or whatever the case is. I learned discernment very young. Ask for discernment, pay attention to the discernment that's in you. Stop disregarding red flags. There's a lot to be said, but that's what comes to me. You've got to be very, very careful. And if you are in a gap or in a space where there are some things that you don't understand about what you read or what you see, just pause on it. Just pause.
Yeah.
Don't go into overdrive of trying to Google the answers or have conversation with certain people. Discernment and wisdom. Proverbs talks to us about knowledge and discretion being in our pocket, like our best friends. Just pause. We jump to the need to speak a lot, or we jump to the need to have things figured out a lot. Slow it down. In a world that's zooming by you 100 miles an hour, just stop for a minute and get settled before you start trying to figure things out. I'll leave that with the ladies.
100% on point. We can all